I am not a patient person. I have often made impulsive, even reckless decisions, leaping before I look. As I've gotten older, that's mellowed, or I've mellowed, or both, I suppose, but I still want to finish everything right now. Impulsively and inevitably being fast as opposed to right. This, though, is the story of my boldest and best decision. The decision that taught me that taking the plunge often means embracing the marathon and not the sprint. I think it's fairly rare for any of us to look ourselves in the mirror and say, wow, aren't I brave? Most of the time, acts of bravery are not planned. They are thrust upon us, born out of necessity for survival for ourselves or others. None of us sets out to be brave, and then there you are. Over the past year, I have heard endless debate about whether or not Angelina Jolie is brave for having opted to undergo a double mastectomy based on a genetic likelihood, an 87% likelihood, that she would get breast cancer. People have unlimited opinions on this matter, many without basis of fact on their side. I have an opinion based on facts, observation, and primarily experience. I am a genetic anomaly. I inherited both BRCA1 and BRCA2. With the exception of my sister and my father, I have never come across anyone who carries mutations in both of these genes. Yay me! When the test results were delivered, first to my sister who was battling breast cancer, and then to me, we decided together to take the most aggressive approach to limit our chances of dying from cancer. So, I looked, and then I left. In June of 2012, I had a double mastectomy and a complete hysterectomy. I was 40. It's okay to look, everybody does. With both BRCA genes, it is not possible to calculate the risk of cancer. For argument's sake, the doctors added 10% to any risk that I had, giving me a 97% chance of developing breast cancer. And the BRCA gene does not only increase your chances of breast and ovarian cancer. There are, in fact, 5 indicated cancers associated with it. So colon, melanoma, and pancreatic are not off the table. But you can't remove your pancreas. So breasts, uterus, ovaries, that was where the battlefield on my body began. Was this choice taking the plunge, as it were? I can say for sure that it made me sensible, pragmatic, but mostly it significantly increased my chances of seeing my son grow up. My harshest critics accused me of unnecessary self-mutilation, but they hadn't heard from the superstar yet. The choice for me wasn't a choice at all. I also happen to have multiple sclerosis. Now, I know I hit the health lottery. And with the added complication, I feared that my ability to fight any major illness would be impaired from the outset. Also, let's be honest, 97% is basically 100%. The cancer was coming. I just didn't know how or when it would hit. This was a scenario I could control. But just because the choice was a fait accompli because of the circumstances of my life does not mean for one moment that I took it lightly. The effects of reconstruction, which I just completed 3 weeks ago after 22 months and 5 surgeries, not to mention early onset menopause, have made for a challenging 2 years. And challenging is absolutely a euphemism. At times, it's fucking hell. And living through it, again, not brave, just necessary. So, what am I doing here, if none of this, in my eyes, is taking the plunge? Because to me, the act of telling you about it is. To stand in front of a group of people and talk about the most critical decision I've ever made is something I had never thought to do. The part of myself that I put out into the world when I describe how devastating it was to hear my sister weep when I told her that I had both genes, just as I had when she told me. Or the physical pain I suffered not only from surgery, but from my MS flaring and me having to be hospitalized after the surgery. I'm someone who always wants to be perceived as indestructible. And the more I have thrown at me, the more I fight to keep my armor holding strong. Saying out loud that I feel broken, that I cried for a month every day when menopause hit, like a car careening at 90 miles per hour. That I'm often pissed because I have no feeling in my breasts and I have no interest in sex, or that I failed to maintain an optimistic outlook throughout this battle. That I am in fact terrified that this is as good as it gets, with my health, with my life, putting those weaknesses out into the ether. That's my version of leaping into the unknown. In my family, there's not a lot of room for wallowing, so we don't. My dad is fighting his 8th cancer, compliments of our genetic makeup, and I have never once heard him complain. Not when they took his prostate, or part of his colon, or his ureter, or his kidney, or his bladder. His mantra is, until they tell me that there's nothing they can do, I'm fine. I'll do what I have to do, and I'll move on. So, when I'm inclined to complain about my weird fake boobs or my early menopause, I don't. I think of the family team captain, Captain Cancer, and I fall in and move on. While my diagnoses did not come with a death sentence, they have built for me a life that includes an uphill battle. So, I put on the armor, that's what it's there for. It doesn't mean that all the other stuff, the pain and the fear, isn't true. It's just that it's not useful in the fight ahead. So, just this once, I'm admitting it right here, if only to prove to myself that I can. Just this once, my weakness may in fact be my strength. And here I am, fighting the fear, telling it like it is, and making the choice to leap. All right.